something that I'm quite passionate about, obviously, which is voice technology, something that I've been kind of obsessed with for the past 18 months. So my name is Geraint, and I'm Welsh. I've got an unpronounceable Welsh name, but it rhymes with pint. And so this is my kind of voice journey. If it's working, this is me actually in 2011. So look at the state of that. I mean, what was I thinking? I look kind of homeless, don't I, really? I'm outside Cardiff train station, and this is when I was an in-house SEO. So I was an SEO guy. I think this was like a day before I moved to London with my family. And I guess the reason I'm telling you that, I moved to London and I set up an agency called Move Digital. So that was kind of 8 years ago, and fast forward 8 years, and I've been working with hundreds of companies. I've seen fads kind of come and go. I've weathered algorithms, the rise of apps, social ads. I've seen growth hacking. I've kind of seen it all, really. And, you know, you kind of come across these trends. And I think voice for me, when I came across voice, I think I bought an Alexa in 2017. It really did feel like it was a natural progression from the way that we actually search for things. So from an SEO point of view, like it made sense to me. And it really resonated when my son, I was driving him to football in South London somewhere, and he was using my phone like he always is, and he was talking to Google. And I said, why are you talking? You know, why are you? He's, well, that's what we do. You know, we don't type, we talk. So I thought, I went, SEO, typing, talking. I think voice really is the kind of, there's going to be a shift in the way that we search and buy for things. And voice is brand new, so there's no one really owning it right now. So remember how, like, Jamie Oliver, like, really owns YouTube. There's no one doing that. So voice is kind of ripe for someone to really own that platform. And, you know, when people think of voice and food and drink, they could potentially think of you. So I've got a voice podcast as well, which is 12 months old, which is called The Voice for Voice. And that's going down pretty well. Like 400 downloads in Chicago for some reason. Don't know, I'm famous in Chicago, or there's someone kind of clicking the download button. And I also work with Amazon to organise the Alexa Dev Meetup. When broken down, voice is a new way of interacting with computers. So you need to look at voice or an Alexa skill or a Google action to be a bit like a website. It negates the need for typing, obviously. So a bit like Uber did with, and Deliveroo used mobile apps to launch, voice is a way of saving time and money. So voice, big statement, but I think voice is the new, like, internet. I think that the potential is just huge. And I think in the not too distant future, like 2 to 3 years, like when we're in the shower, we could potentially be chatting to Alexa in the shower head, booking an Uber, organising tasks via Trello, slacking your team. I really do think it's much more than just a kind of an Alexa at your desk. It really is going to be everywhere, but it's got to start somewhere. So most of us missed the .com boom, but we're kind of bang on time for voice. So there's an opportunity to really roll out some cool strategies. So previously tech companies used mobile to launch as the platform of choice, and I think the future tech startups will potentially use voice as their platform of choice. So voice is the new internet. Big statement, but I genuinely believe it. The stats are kind of off the hook, like incredible stats, like 100 million devices globally. In 2019, Alexa sits on over 100 million devices globally, with Google Assistant sitting on 1 billion, because obviously Google Assistant is on Android. So it's just like insane. 30,000 integrations. So it's Amazon's plan to integrate with third-party technology companies. So think about, like I said, the shower head, the fridge, the toaster. Pretty soon we'll be kind of just chatting to our fridge via Alexa and ordering milk, or it's insane. And just to add, 10,000 people work on Alexa in Amazon, 10,000 people, and 1,000 of them, this is a little bit scary, are listening to our conversations when we've said the wake word. And it's not listening, well, they say it's not listening to get data. They say it's listening to improve the conversation architecture. So make of that what you will. But there are rumors that there's kind of internal chat kind of boards where they like swap messages of things they've heard, just rumors, you know. But I don't work for Amazon, so I'm just here to share what I think. So smart speaker penetration in the UK, Amazon are leading the way. So there are simply more Alexas being sold. The price point is really cheap, $29.99, $69.99. I mean, how many people here have actually got an Alexa? Hands up. And how often, like, do you use it daily? Anyone use it daily? Yeah, a few of you. So that's going to change. And then Google, second. Google Home, Google Assistant. And we'll kind of come to the kind of ins and outs of how they work, but essentially Amazon's leading the way. 9.5 million monthly active users, 80,000 skills on Alexa. So Amazon are much more pro developers. They want developers to build skills, but a lot of the skills are shit. That's the problem. So they're like games that, you know, it's a bit like the internet 20 years ago. Websites were crap. Skills they're yet to reach their boiling point, but they will. So do you kind of know the difference between a skill, flash briefing, Google Action? Well, that's a good job I'm here then. So a skill is essentially, it sits on Amazon and it's a voice equivalent of a website. So you say, Alexa, enable the Coca-Cola skill. So you converse with Alexa in the same way that you would converse with a website. So it's essentially coded and programmed so that you can ask Alexa an infinite amount of questions. You can ask Alexa whatever you want and she will respond because you code it. So a skill links up to Amazon Pay. So I've done tests on my podcast where I actually bought a wheelbarrow on the podcast. So I said, Alexa, find me a wheelbarrow. It found me a wheelbarrow for like 100 quid and it got delivered the next day. So I've still got a wheelbarrow in the office. So really easy to build skills, infinite possibilities essentially. Google Home, similar, but there's something called Google Assistant, which sits on obviously Android phones. You can get it for iOS as well. Now Google has the huge competitive advantage is that the data comes from its search engine. So the information that you get from Google will always be much more accurate. And I've tested and tested and tested this because I'm a sad bastard. And literally, you will get the best information from Google Home. But Alexa is much more pro-developer. You can build better skills. So the opportunity is, and I'll come to this at the end, voice SEO. So you need to, if you're a restaurant, food brand, whatever, you need to optimize your websites for voice SEO because don't forget my son in the car, who's 11, he's talking to Google Assistant, searching for things. Pretty soon he's going to be 16, 17, and he's going to be wanting to buy stuff or go to restaurants, etc., and he's going to talk. So you need to be optimized for voice, but you also need to have the skill on Alexa because Alexa's going to be everywhere. It's going to be in the shower, in the fridge, and you need, you know, essentially to have that conversation, that voice equivalent of your website. So who's doing voice well? So obviously the BBC, I'd say, are leading the way with voice, and I'm kind of quite tight with some of the voice team at the BBC, and I think that iPlayer is something that they felt that perhaps they messed up a little bit, so they really want to get voice right, and they've actually built their own voice assistant now. I think it's called Beeb. Essentially, they're recognizing that voice is, you know, a huge part of media and how we're going to consume information. Spotify, if you've got an Alexa, it's the perfect way of listening to music. Alexa, play Jay-Z 99 Problems or whatever. And Sony are really leading the way as well, in the sense that we talk about this on the podcast. Their artists are actually building skills. So imagine you launch a band, and don't forget, a skill is like a voice website. You can have, it could be a Beatles skill where it's every single Beatles interview, voice activated, every single Beatles song, every single fact about the Beatles. If you're a Beatles, obsessed Beatles fan, you're going to be really into that. So that's where I see the future going. So in terms of food and drink, on Alexa, Domino's have got a skill. Ocado have got a skill which is excellence. That's a skill that I kind of use weekly because I live in East Dulwich. No, but it's an amazing skill where you can add stuff onto your shopping list, So you say, Alexa, enable Ocado, add Parmesan cheese onto my shopping list, or whatever you want to add onto your shopping list. Just Eat as well. So I've spent some time with the guys who built this skill, and you can essentially, it's not as sophisticated as it will be, in the sense that it relies on orders that you've ordered via the web, but it's kind of getting there. Don't forget, voice is in its infancy. It's not the finished article yet. Diageo as well have built some cool skills. I think there's one called the Bar, which is a cocktail skill. So you've got the Alexa at home. You can build cocktails with the Diageo skill. So I think it's kind of an open goal, really, because there's no one really doing it very well at the moment. The kind of figures are suggesting that the devices are in people's homes. It's relatively easy to create the skill. So the opportunity is not to go hell for leather and spend, well, you can spend loads of money if you want, but it's slowly. And I think, like, the opportunity for you guys and for food and drink, hospitality, is to look at the kind of content. When I say content, if you've got a menu or a daily specials board, for example, you're at a restaurant, you could create an Alexa flash briefing. So a flash briefing is where you say, Alexa, enable my flash briefing, and Alexa will basically play a series of news clips from, so my flash briefing is BBC, Sky Sports, TechCrunch, and maybe a bit of Gary V, just to kind of, he seems to be mentioned a lot today, isn't he, old Gary? But, so for you guys, the opportunity would be to create a flash briefing whereby it could be the daily specials menu. So today we've got asparagus risotto, and we've got, whatever is on your specials menu. It's a way of interacting with your customers. It's a way of taking advantage of the fact that Alexa is in their home, and with some clever marketing, you could get them to enable the flash briefing. Do you use flash briefings? So you've got to use flash briefings. They're so cool. You need to do that. So on the Alexa app on the phone, you just enable them, and it's super cool. So if you've got a podcast as well, you can create a skill and play the podcast through Alexa. So Alexa, enable the Voice of Voice podcast, and you can listen to it via Alexa. So voice apps for restaurant. If you're a burger restaurant, imagine there's a really trendy new burger restaurant that's opened in Brixton. You could create a skill, and you could essentially book a table via Alexa. Alexa, enable burger restaurant, book me a table for 8 o'clock. You could listen to Alexa talking about the menu. It's infinite, the possibilities, because don't forget, it's a voice equivalent of a website. So start off slow, create a flash briefing, and think about, how your potential customers would interact with Alexa, to find out information, to book tables, etc., etc. Voice SEO is something that you need to be thinking about as well. So a really handy tip is to, on your websites, have an FAQs page, and essentially, voice SEO is for, Alexa is linked up to Bing, which is rubbish. So Google will always display the best information. So an FAQs page where you actually kind of reverse engineer what you think people are going to ask Google. So, hey Google, what's the best gluten-free restaurant in Brixton? You could have an FAQs page which is just targeting that phrase. So a big heading, we are the best gluten-free restaurant in Brixton. And with some clever kind of optimization, you will appear. So I'm not saying that perhaps this is something that's going to happen tomorrow, but it's going to happen and you need to be prepared for it. And it's something that just requires a bit of forward thinking. And it's the same for any kind of restaurant or organization. You need to have it optimized. A little DeLorean there, the future. That's the weekend there, that is, guys. So to recap, voice isn't going away. The figures are just absolutely staggering. They're off the hook. Voice is going to take time, unfortunately. It's not something that's going to suddenly become, day to day, but it's going to slowly but surely creep in. And I haven't mentioned Siri, because what will happen next is Apple will enable developers to create Siri-first apps. So basically, developers will create apps that are voice first, that are kind of built for voice, and that's when it can potentially get into the mainstream. So huge opportunities. Voice is going to be everywhere. So you can listen to my podcast if you like. Well, you've got no choice. You have to listen to it. And if you want to reach out to me, those are my Instas and Twitter and email. Thank you very much.